humiliated, shaved, broken. Stepmother humiliated me and shaved me. Clara Bell could barely force the words out. She was 19, shaking in the dry summer grass outside Las Vegas, New Mexico territory. Her dress was torn. Her bare legs were streaked with dust and blood. Half her hair was gone, hacked off in ugly, uneven clumps. Thin red scratches ran along her scalp where dull steel had bitten into the skin, and Elias Boone was on one knee beside her, one hand half raised, as if he might do something cruel next. From a distance, any passing rider would have thought the worst. A 49-year-old rancher, a frightened girl on the ground, a lonely hill with no witness but the sun. But Elias Boone had stopped before touching her. He had seen fear before. This was not the fear of a girl caught in a lie. This was the fear of somebody hunted. She had not fallen there by chance. She had run there, not far, maybe, but far enough to fall. His horse lifted its head. Its ears turned west. Then Elias heard it too. Hoofbeats. Far off. Coming fast. Clara heard them the same moment. Her whole body tightened. "He found me," she whispered. Elias kept his voice low and steady. Nobody had found her yet. Not while he was still breathing. He looked at her the way a careful rancher checked a wounded colt. Bruised finger marks on her wrist. Fresh dirt ground into one knee. A hard scrape where she had hit rock. She looked like she'd gone down hard on the hillside and slid through dry stone and grass. And the hair. No woman had done that to herself. Somebody had held her down and marked her. Elias asked only one question. Who was coming? Clara clutched a small cloth bundle against her chest. "Wade Cutter," she said. "Agnes sent him. My stepmother wants me back before I reach town." The name Wade Cutter meant something around those parts. He was young, strong, mean, and stupid in the way dangerous men often were. Elias's eyes dropped to the bundle in Clara's arms. She tried to hide it. He did not snatch for it. He only said, "Let me see what a man is chasing a girl for." Her fingers loosened. Inside was a folded paper, old and yellowed, with sweat stains at the corners. Elias saw a signature at the bottom. Thomas Bell. One line near the bottom caught his eye. Water rights. Now the shaved hair, the bruises, and the chase made ugly sense. This was not only cruelty, this was money, land, control. And if Clara lost that paper, she lost whatever future her dead father had tried to leave her. The hoofbeats grew louder. Dust lifted over the far rise. Clara looked up at Elias like he was the last fence post left standing in a flood. For 30 years, Elias Boone had lived by one rule: stay out of other people's trouble. But a terrified girl was bleeding at his knees, and the man coming for her was close enough to kill hope. So what would happen when Wade Cutter rode over that hill, saw Elias Boone beside the girl, and understood the quiet rancher was not moving aside? Dust rose slowly over the ridge. Wade Cutter was still coming. Elias Boone did not rush. A man who rushed on open land usually made mistakes. Now, instead, he looked once more at the paper and Clara Bell's shaking hands. Thomas Bell. The signature was steady, written by a man who had known exactly what he was doing. Below it sat 3 words that could start a feud in half the territory. Water rights claim. Elias let out a quiet breath. "Well, now," he muttered, "that explains a great deal." Clara watched his face carefully. "You know what it means?" she asked. Elias nodded once. In New Mexico territory, water meant everything. A piece of land without water was dust. A piece of land with water was money. Cattle needed it. Towns grew around it, and men killed over less. "Your father filed this proper," Elias said. "Looks like he meant that spring to belong to you." Clara swallowed. "He told me to keep it safe. Said one day it would keep me alive." Her voice grew smaller. "Agnes found out last week." That was when Elias saw the whole ugly thing plain. Agnes Bell had not done this out of anger. She had marked the girl on purpose. In a frontier town, shame could do half a villain's work. A girl with butchered hair would avoid church, avoid town, avoid a marshal, and a girl who stayed hidden could be forced to sign near anything, land papers, Debt notes? Maybe worse. Elias had seen tricks like that before. Ugly ones. Clara rubbed her arms as if the memory still burned. She held me down in the kitchen. Said nobody would listen to a crazy girl with butchered hair. Then she sent Wade after me. The hoofbeats were louder now. The rider would reach the hill in less than a minute. Elias folded the paper carefully and handed it back. You keep that close, he said. If that paper disappears, your future disappears with it. Clara nodded. Fear was still in her eyes, but something else was there now. Hope. Elias Boone stood up slowly and took hold of his horse's reins. For 30 years he had stayed out of trouble that belonged to other families. But sometimes a man reached a point where staying out of it became the wrong choice. For a man like Elias Boone, that was as close to the unthinkable as a summer day ever got. He looked toward the ridge where the dust was rising. Wade Cutter was almost here. If you enjoy old frontier stories like this, subscribe now, because things were about to get ugly on that hill. Then pour yourself a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and listen close. And tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from tonight? Because Clara Bell was about to find out whether her father's land would save her life or ruin it before sundown. Wade Cutter came over the ridge hard and fast. Dust rolled behind his horse like a small storm. He spotted them immediately. A grown man could read a lot from the way another rider held his reins. Wade pulled his horse short the moment he saw Elias Boone standing beside the girl. That meant he had expected Clara to be alone. The big man swung down from the saddle with the loose confidence of someone used to winning fights. Wade Cutter was about 30, thick in the shoulders, with the kind of careless grin that usually meant trouble followed him around. Well now, Wade said. Looks like our little runaway found herself a helper. Clara stepped half behind Elias without thinking. Elias did not move aside. He rested one hand on the saddle horn and looked Wade up and down the same calm way a rancher looked at a stubborn bull. Afternoon, Elias said. Wade squinted at him. Hugh Boone Elias gave a small nod. He had seen Wade around before, not often, but enough to know the man liked easy victories. Wade jerked his chin toward Clara. Girl belongs back at the Bell place. Agnes wants her home. Clara's fingers tightened around the folded paper hidden against her chest. Elias noticed. So did Wade. Wade's smile thinned. She'd take something that ain't hers, Elias answered slow. Looks like she took something that is hers. For a second, the only sound was wind sliding through the dry grass. Wade's eyes hardened. Step aside, old man. This ain't your business. That was usually the moment most men backed away. Trouble between family members could get ugly fast. Everybody in that part of the territory knew Agnes Bell had friends who could make trouble last a long time, and nobody liked standing in the middle of it. But Elias Boone had already crossed that line the moment he read the words water rights on that paper. He tilted his head slightly. Funny thing about family matters, he said. Sometimes they end up in front of a marshal. Wade gave a short laugh. You planning on riding her all the way to Las Vegas like that? Clara's leg was still bleeding. Her feet were raw. She could barely stand steady. Wade stepped closer. He smelled like sweat, leather, and bad temper. Tell you what, Wade said, you walk away right now. Boone, you never saw the girl. You never saw that paper. And this whole mess disappears. Elias studied the younger man. Behind Wade's shoulder, the sun was dropping toward the hills. Town was still miles away. No witnesses, no law. Just 3 people on a lonely patch of New Mexico grass. Elias Boone slowly removed his hand from the saddle horn. Not walking away, he said. Wade sighed like a man disappointed by foolishness. That's a shame. Then I reckon I move you myself. Wade lunged forward to grab Clara's arm. And that was the exact moment Elias Boone decided the quiet part of his life was officially over. Wade Cutter moved fast. He reached for Clara's arm like a man grabbing a loose rope, but Elias Boone had been watching that shoulder from the moment Wade stepped closer. Elias shifted one step. Not big, just enough. Wade's hand closed on empty air. Before the younger man could recover, Elias caught his wrist and twisted it down toward the dirt, hard. Wade cursed and stumbled forward. Clara jumped back behind Elias as the two men locked together in the dry grass. Now Wade was stronger, younger too, but strength alone did not win every fight on the frontier. Experience counted for a lot, and Elias Boone had lived long enough to learn where a man's balance lived. Wade swung a heavy punch. It clipped Elias across the shoulder and sent dust flying. The blow would have dropped plenty of men. Elias only grunted and stepped in closer, too close for Wade to swing again. Then he drove his weight forward and shoved the bigger man sideways into the dirt. Wade hit the ground hard. His hat rolled away through the grass. For a second, everything went quiet. Wind across the pasture, a horse snorting behind them. Then Wade rolled and pushed himself up again, angrier now. "You old fool," he spat. "You think this is worth it?" Elias wiped dust from his sleeve. His voice stayed calm. "Seems to me it is." Wade's eyes slid toward Clara again, and toward the paper she was trying to hide against her chest. That's when the truth finally showed on his face. It was never about bringing her home. It was about that paper. He lunged again, this time not for Clara, for the letter. Clara gasped and stumbled backward. But before Wade could reach her, Elias stepped between them again. The quiet rancher moved faster than most men expected from someone his age. He caught Wade square in the chest with both hands and shoved him back another step. "Listen careful," Elias said. "Girl's heading to town. Paper goes with her." Wade stared at him like he had just heard the dumbest sentence in New Mexico. "Town is 10 miles from here." "Boone, you think she makes it that far?" His grin slowly returned. "'Cause if you ride with her, that means something real interesting." Elias narrowed his eyes slightly. Wade leaned forward just enough to let the words fall slow. "Agnes Bell ain't the only one who wants that land, and the men who do are a whole lot meaner than me." For the first time since the fight started, the wind did not feel so empty. Somewhere far beyond the ridge, another horse whinnied, and Elias Boone suddenly realized Wade Cutter might not be the only rider coming for Clara Bell. The wind moved softly across the grass. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Wade Cutter stood there breathing hard, dust on his shirt and anger in his eyes. But something in Elias Boone's face had changed the balance of the moment. Wade had expected an old rancher to step aside. He had expected fear. What he got instead was a quiet man who simply refused to move. That kind of man was harder to push than most. Wade knew Boone was not some drifting fool nobody would miss. If blood got spilled out here, people in Las Vegas would hear about it by nightfall. And that was the kind of noise Wade preferred to avoid. He had come for a scared girl and a paper, not a killing that would bring half the valley down on him. Wade spat into the dirt and backed toward his horse. "This ain't over, Boone. Men want that water, and they ain't the kind who ask twice." Elias did not answer. He only watched Wade swing into the saddle and ride back toward the ridge, then the dust slowly swallowing him again. When the sound of hoofbeats faded, the silence returned to the hills. Clara finally let out the breath she had been holding. "Do you think he'll come back?" she asked. Elias looked toward the road that led to Las Vegas. Most men who chased land like that usually did. But something else mattered more. He turned toward Clara. "You still got that paper?" She nodded. Her hands were still shaking, but she held the folded letter like it was the most valuable thing in the territory, 'cause, in a way, it was. Elias helped her slowly onto his horse. Town was still miles away, and trouble was not finished with them yet. But one thing had changed for good. Clara Bell was no longer facing it alone. Sometimes that is how a life begins to turn. Sitting here telling this story, I keep thinking about that moment on the hill. A quiet man who had spent 30 years minding his own business saw a frightened girl and understood that walking away would make him part of the wrong. Most people think courage has to be loud. It usually is not, a lot of the time. Courage is just a tired man planting his boots and refusing to step aside. That lesson still matters now. Life still gives people chances to look away, to stay quiet, to tell themselves it is somebody else's trouble. But sometimes the right thing begins with one small choice. Stay, help, stand your ground, and I will tell you this from my own heart. Stories like this stay with me because the world still needs more people like Elias Boone, not louder people, not prouder people, just steadier ones. So let me ask you, if you'd come over that hill that afternoon and seen what Elias saw, would you have stopped? Or would you have kept riding? If this story meant something to you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you're listening from tonight. I always enjoy knowing how far these old frontier stories travel. One quick note before we close. This story was collected and retold from old frontier-style accounts, and a few details were shaped to make the lesson clearer and the telling stronger. The images in this video are AI-made illustrations, used to bring more feeling and atmosphere to the story. If this kind of story is not for you, that's all right. Set it down, get some rest, and take care of your health tonight. But if it stayed with you, leave me a comment. That tells me these old stories still matter, and that is reason enough to keep telling them. And somewhere out beyond Las Vegas, with the sun falling low and the dust still hanging over the trail, Elias Boone and Clara Bell had not reached safety yet, not even close.